For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you've really
run out of time, and we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
And Kassira McKee, I am so excited that you are here. I mean, and we are letting go of another
of what? Of all kinds of stuff.
Yes, of another week and starting a new week. I have to tell you something.
What?
So, I'm telling everybody, Kassira said no surprise questions. So, I do start with a surprise question, and I looked at the surprise question, and do you know what it was? I'm going to tell you what it was.
What was it?
I'm going to tell you what it was.
What was it, my twin brother?
No, it says, what is something that you've done that you'll never do again? And so I'm going to say.
Oh, good Lord. We don't have enough time for that.
No, ask.
Get married.
No,
not get engaged 3 times. I mean,
I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Ask a surprise question. This is Richard Skipper Celebrates. What have you celebrated this week?
Being me.
Oh,
just being me. I'm fabulous. I'm not gonna lie. I'm fabulous. I'm extraordinarily fabulous. And I'm so happy to be me and not anybody else.
I'm
celebrating myself and how intelligent I am and how inquisitive I am. Plus, I'm celebrating the fact that I started my own solo YouTube channel, which has not been easy. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm not a techie yet. I'm doing it and I'm just going with it, and I've gotten some really, really great feedback about all those juicy things that I talk about that other people don't want to talk about. It is an adult content show. It is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is the GPG rated show. If you want to go for a little bit more of an edgier show, go to Kassira McKee and subscribe. Everybody, subscribe to this channel, and because once we get her to 125 subscribers, which we're getting there. Then she's going to get her own URL under her name. And are you going to call it Kassira McKee or let that go?
I don't know, Richard. That's a good question. I think I might, it's my happy hour show. So I might change it to Kassira McKee's Happy Hour. I don't know.
Or the Let That Go channel.
No, because I talk about so many other things, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I do numberology, and I talk about, different kinds of I'm going to be talking about different kinds of meditation. I'm going to have, if Ron will agree to it, who's going to be our guest tonight.
I'm excited about this.
And talk about different kinds of meditation. There's things that a lot of people just won't discuss because of the stigma around them. My last show was about the stigma around talking about erectile dysfunction. And people just don't want to talk about it. And in fact, I posted it on my social media pages and no one has said anything. It's been completely ignored because people don't want to talk about it. And we got to talk about it. And here's the thing, 8% of young people 20 to 29 suffer from it.
But I want to say something.
It's across the board with men. It's across the board with men of different ages. And we've got to be honest about it and talk about it. Let's discuss it.
But it's not just about sexual issues. It's about anything that people don't understand.
Yes.
People don't understand it. They don't want to talk about it. Or I don't know anything about that. I'm moving on.
Okay.
But you and I both share something in common. And that
many things in common, actually.
Many things, but we are inquisitive. If it's something I don't know about, I want to learn about it. And
gosh darn it,
I am learning so much because of you, and thank God that you have come into my life. And I know that you and I have a soul contract. I am learning so much about soul contracts and everything. We talked about this last week. And you called me you were so ecstatic. You said, there's somebody I want to have on this show, and that's Ron LaPlace. And you said, we've got to get him on the show. We've got to get him on the show. And you reached out, and he said yes. And before we
without hesitation, he said yes without hesitation.
But he's waiting in the wings. He's smiling.
Yes, he is. I'm looking at him.
He's listening. We're watching him. He's his reaction. But so that we can talk about him with him listening without putting him on the spot on screen. What was it especially about him that you wanted to have him on this platform tonight?
Well, because you and I were talking, we've been talking a lot about soul contracts. That's how it came up. He's the one that started schooling me on what soul contracts are. And it was in someone's kitchen. Hi, Ron.
Hello.
You know, we had a discussion in someone's kitchen about soul contracts. And I will never, ever, ever forget it, because, you know, Ron is the kind of person that he's convicted in what he knows. And if you're having a conversation with him in person, Ron will look you straight in the eye, and he'll get Ron will get really close to you physically, get really close to you in your 9 bodies of energy. And he'll look you straight in the eye, and he'll say, well, they have a soul contract. Do you know anything about soul contracts? Let me tell you about soul contracts, you know? And that's the person that first opened the door around soul contracts. Well, and that's why I wanted to have him on the show, because we've been talking lately about people being honest with each other when they meet each other. If it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a friend, a platonic relationship. When I'm really good at interviewing people, that's what I call it. I interview people when I first get to know them. Sometimes the red flags go up, and sometimes I let them go, and I just want to get to know the person better. Yet, it's my understanding, and Ron, please correct me if I'm wrong, but even if we are in the grocery store and there's somebody next to us, and I say, oh, I love your bag, and they go, oh, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. I have a soul contract with them. Here's my understanding, and Ron, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Before you go any further, I want to say welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Welcome here. I am thrilled that you're here, because I've been reading on your website and learning a little bit about you as well. I've got 1,000 questions. We could be here for a week, and we're just going to scratch the surface tonight. And Kassira does bring up a very interesting question, because I believe, first of all, I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to shut up, because I believe.
No, don't say that word. I hate that word.
No, I'm going to be quiet for a moment. Okay. I believe, along the lines of what she just said, that we are all so connected on this planet. And I carry the empathy gene very deeply within myself. I am definitely an empath on this planet.
So am I. That's why we're so close, darling.
If I am watching the news and I hear about some tragedy or something 1,000 miles, I don't need to know that person for it to resonate so deeply in my soul. I have a very clear vision of the suffering, not only of what that person's going through, but the entire family. We had a situation happen in New York this past week, a very tragic situation where a Chinese woman was brutally murdered. She was followed, and when I heard this story, the imagery was so vivid in my mind, and it wasn't just the imagery of what happened, but it went beyond that. And I felt the pain of her family. I felt what everyone in her family was going through. And I don't feel that I can just hear something on the news, turn it off, and I'm going to go to bed and go on with the next day's news. It resonates deeply within me. And I feel that we are all so connected. And where has this, perhaps you can shed some light on this tonight, where has this disconnect come from? and why are we experiencing it now?
Ron?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the intro. And I have to say, Richard, it's great to meet you. It's great to be here. And I consider you not only an empath in this short time that we've been speaking now, I considered you to be a brave man. You're putting yourself side by side with some pretty big energy with Kassira.
That's a nice way of saying it. Okay.
And so, yeah, I honor that. That is a huge question that you've introduced here at the beginning. My goodness. So, this is a time when we are in a period in the world where so much is available in the information age. We can have so much information. If you think about the state of the world today, we are surrounded every moment by devices that are speaking to us. Literally, they're giving us more information all the time. In our relationships, we are gathering more and more information because that's just the life that everybody's leading now. Through all of this, what has been happening, I feel, in relationship is it's becoming more and more difficult to remain in relationship with other people. We're in a world where it's becoming more and more difficult to stay balanced. And when we move out of balance into whatever sides, because I'm going to talk about sides in a moment, whatever side you move into, that puts you in a place of separation from others.
Yes.
So, why does that happen? I think it would be a wonderful thing if we could figure out why that happens. And so,
do you think it has something to do with being addicted to being right?
Well, that's a part of the ego, which is we can
ego mind.
That discussion if you want.
Yes.
The ego essentially is just a form of protection. If it wasn't for the ego, I don't believe we'd have survived as long as we have.
Sure.
But I do want to speak to that. In order to do that, I have to go into a principle.
Okay.
And that's the principle. That's the principle of how did we create the world that we're living in?
Good question.
So,
good question.
I'll give you just a brief explanation. We create primarily almost exclusively.
We're getting some feedback here for some reason.
Oh.
Okay.
Are we okay now? That's my voice that's coming back to me, I guess, eh?
Do you
have anything else on? If you have your phone on, or turn the volume down on your phone, or okay.
Nothing
I don't
else
either. So I don't either. Okay.
Anyway, about creation. We are living in a world that has been created primarily from our mind. Now, we are learning how to create in more distinct and sharper ways all the time. We're gathering information on how to create. But through all this, we have a misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding is what we haven't realized, that the mind is a polarized instrument. It is divided literally down the middle. It is a house divided. And one side of the mind primarily deals with logic and looks at life from that perspective. The other side of the mind, which I feel you two have developed in large part, is the side of the mind that deals with emotion and feeling. Those two worlds tend to remain somewhat separate. And when we fall out of balance within ourselves, we move into one or the other in a way that makes it difficult to deal with the other side of life. Mm-hmm. But that's the nature of polarity. Everything in this creation is polarized. So when we create from the mind, whatever we're creating, if our intention is to create, let's say, peace, that sounds like a pretty good idea, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And we put all of our effort into creating peace. We may even gather together with others to create peace. What we don't realize is that at some level, because we live in polarity, we are also creating its opposite.
Wow.
And this is literally, I remember in the late 90s connecting to the internet and also getting familiar with computers and all of that and thinking, oh my God, this is such a godsend.
Yeah. Exactly.
Think back.
Yes, of course.
Years. And this is the nature of technology. Yes, there are all these benefits of technology, but then there's the whole other side. And we tend to think that it's only going to be one, but it's both. Mm-hmm. And the more effort we spend on trying to create the one, the other is being created, and it surprises us. It's like it's happening behind us.
Thank you.
It hits us from behind. And that's
that reminds me of, so there was this fabulous book called The Buddha in Your Mirror. And it was written by a Nichiren Buddhist. I practice Nichiren Buddhism. Herbie Hancock wrote the foreword for this book. I don't have it with me because I've given them all away. I've given all my copies away. But if anybody wants to understand what real Buddhism is, please order The Buddha in Your Mirror from Amazon.com. He said, I really want to talk about the term number one. There's only one number one. Why are you fighting for it? There's only going to be a one number one. Let it go. Don't, just quit fighting for number one. There's only one number one. And he also said, in this speech, I was in the room with him when he made this speech. He said, we are human beings. We're not technology. We're human beings. And he said, I really feel like, I really feel like we're getting away from the humanism of religion, and we're getting away from the humanism of who we are because of technology. And he said, he said this to a room full of Nichiren Buddhists. I encourage you to go out there and explore other stuff, which I already did, Ron. I explored all kinds of practices, and I even for a time ran a candle shop in Dallas. I was a Wiccan for a while. I looked at all this other stuff that was out there because I didn't want to live in a bubble. I wanted to know what was out there. And he was preaching that. He was preaching that. Mm-hmm. Step out of your bubble. Look at what else is out there. Mm-hmm. Don't sequester yourself or lock yourself up in a cell.
Well, it always goes back to the expression of walking in someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. I mean, most people, do live in a bubble. And you know, I come from a small town, as does you know, Kassira. Well, you grew up in Texas. I don't know if you grew up in a small town or not.
No, I grew up in Dallas, which is huge,
in,
and Ron's been there. That's where I learned Merkaba.
Yes,
Ron
but I grew up in a very small fishbowl of a town. I grew up in the kind of town where you grow up in a town, you get married there, you have children, not always in that order, and you go to school, you get a job, and you spend your remaining days there. Me leaving home at 18 was something that most people in my hometown did not do. So I am an enigma to most of my classmates that I went to high school with. And so coming back, you know, after all this time, it's very, very interesting that those people, you know, they don't have any concept of a world beyond their own backyard. And and having conversations with them, I don't argue with them about their perception of the world, because that's only their perception of the world. And we all have to be very open in terms of trying to look through the eyes of the other people that we come in contact with. When Kassira talks about seeing someone in the supermarket and saying, well, that's a beautiful purse that you have, we also have to think, for whatever reasons, why someone is coming through a supermarket.
Can I tell a story?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I was in Smith's Grocery here, which is like Kroger in other states, and I was in the self-checkout, and there was this African-American woman next to me with her partner, a man who was heavy, but I knew I have a lot of Hawaiian energy in me, by the way, and I just had this feeling about her, and I looked over at her and I said something to her, and we struck up a conversation. Her name was Shamara. She works for the Meow Wolf organization, and they had brought her into town to work for Meow Wolf here in Santa Fe. We talked for like a half hour, and I said, "You've got an energy that I identify with. Where are you from?" She goes, "I'm from Hawaii." And I said, "My middle name is Hawaiian. I have a lot of Hawaiian energy." And we had this beautiful conversation about Hawaii and the healing modalities from the culture. And, you know, her husband just kind of stayed out of it, you know, but we just had this lovely conversation. And I said to her, "I think we have a little soul contract here." And she said, "Yes, I agree." She gave me her number. We haven't talked since, but I'm telling you, you know, we meet these people. And it's not an accident that we rub against these people. And here's what I want to lead the conversation into with Ron. Safety with each other. I don't even know this girl, and I felt safe with her. It was really interesting that I felt safe with her. I have never met Richard in person, yet I feel safe with him. I feel totally safe with him. Can we talk about us, you know, creating an energy around us where people feel safe, Ron?
Sure. It's no wonder you feel safe. I've heard Richard speak now about two things. First of all, what happened in New York last week, and now about being in a small town and being with other people. And so, Richard, when you say you're an empath, which is, I can't remember if we talked about before.
By the way, this is the first time he has said that he's an empath. I'm empathic. This is the first time he's outed himself as an empath. And I love it. But that's probably another reason why we're so close, and we've never met in person. Yes,
Richard doesn't just say it; he is it.
Yes.
And that is, I believe, a reason why it's very easy for you to feel safe around him. because he adapts his world to
Yes,
help
he does.
you feel safe in yours.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an interesting concept in the world that we live in. I want to just finish the concept that I was speaking of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
About the mind being a house divided.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that happened for a reason at a certain point in the development of consciousness here in this place, here on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long story. I won't go into that right now, but I will say that there's a name that's used in all traditions to describe that point in time. It's called the fall of man. Now, what does that mean? The fall of man, I'm going to describe as a motion, and that motion is actually falling from one place in your body to another place in your body. The fall of man is a description of what happened when we fell out of here, our heart,
Mm-hmm.
and fell into the mind, forgetting that the heart is the place that you just described, Kassira, that the place of the Buddhist that is one. The heart knows unity. When we lose our connection to that, when we lose the connection from the heart to the mind and our connection to unity, then it's almost impossible to feel safe.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So, what is the way out? Is that worth discussing?
Yes, go for it. Because I'm all about, this is the Let That Go show. What do we have to, what are we called to let go of to manifest better soul contracts and better relationships?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I'm going to entertain the concept that in this case, we aren't actually leaving anything, we're only gaining.
Okay.
We're moving to something. And we actually don't have to let go. We don't have to say goodbye to the mind. We don't have to say goodbye to anything that has been part of our past. What we need to do is to understand that those things can no longer rule. They can no longer be in charge.
What do you mean by they?
They being the mind and the ego.
The ego mind. I write about it in my book. The difference between I don't care what people call it. I call it higher consciousness. Some people call it God. Some people call it divine spirit, Yahweh. I don't care what you call it. In my book, I write that, and in the affirmative prayers that I have in the back of the book for people to fill in the blanks with, is whatever you call it. Whatever you call it, which is also what you call that part of the mind. Some people call it the God mind. I do have a bachelor's degree in metaphysical science, and through the university that I earned that with, they call it the God mind. I don't care what you call it. I don't call it the goddess mind, the divine mind, the Thoth mind. I don't care what you call it. But there are many instances where our ego mind and our quote unquote God mind are not on the same page. You want to talk about that?
Well, just once again to complete where I was going is to express that if we work from just the level of the mind in whatever we're doing, then we are working in a world of polarity that can never be resolved. Polarity will create the opposite of whatever is being created. If all you do is go around creating evil, well, sorry, but you're also creating its opposite as well.
Okay.
Both ways. So what that ends up doing, it's like the saying that Gandhi used, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world of polarity. If this is where we go, that's where we end up. And I think we're proving it. We're at a state in the world now where if we continue on creating in the same way, we will eventually destroy the place that we call home.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Now, so what is the other way? Well, that's what I'm describing. There's something about the heart that makes it different than anything else. Within the heart, in all of the ancient traditions, they spoke of a place inside the heart where unity existed. And that is a physical place within us. When we discover that place and find out how to return there, that opens a doorway that allows a space for what this mind has created to move into a unified field and to begin creating from there.
But don't you agree that people have to be willing?
Well,
there's a lot of people that are not willing, Ron.
No,
but I've met them. If Richard's met them,
right?
We know who they are.
This is not something you can force.
Yes.
It has to be part of a movement that's happening because it's time.
A healing movement. I agree. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
We are called to become less, that was the other thing. I believe we're called, and this was what my solo show is about, being less judgmental and being more open-minded so that we can hear each other and we can have conversations without going, well, you're wrong. You're like, I ended a friendship Friday night with a friend who was just crude and was just not open, and I had to let her go as a friend. I did it physically. I was in front of her and I said, we cannot be friends anymore. You're disgusting. You're not open. You are crazy, and you're not willing to hear other people's point of view. We have to be open.
Yes. So
and
what happens in our interactions with other people is coming from the trauma that each one has experienced.
Oh yes, I agree with you.
And so this is how we deal with each other primarily, because if we're not in balance, we move into a place where we feel fear, and then our trauma comes back and we respond from that place. So you don't just walk into that space in the heart and stay there. If you can experience it once, then it's a place that you can't forget, and you will do whatever it takes to continue to move back to that place. And one of the things that it takes is to heal the trauma that has been ruling your life, probably since very early childhood. So these are natural things, and we all know that in this world, there is a movement to do the work that it takes to create that safe space for each of us.
I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that, a lot of times we don't think about the trauma that someone else has experienced that has brought them to that moment, what they have gone through. When I deal with a lot of people, I always go back and I try to imagine their 5-year-old self. What was the path that brought them from 5 years old to this moment?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
When you think of
I often ask people, where does that come from? Where are you coming from? And they have no idea where it's coming from.
When you
because I'd like to understand, but most people don't even know where that jerk reaction is coming from. And I have a point in my book. Let that go. Richard, do you have my book?
Well, of course I do. Right
so
here.
let that go. Yeah, I talk about how we have these knee-jerk reactions. And they're just these things that we pull from our subconscious that are just there, and we just pull from the storehouse. Oh, she just said this. I'm going to pull from my subconscious, and this is how I'm going to reply. It's under the thing. It's under the chapter of how we let go stuff, and part of it is being mindful.
Yes.
We're not I don't think a lot of people are mindful. They have these knee-jerk reactions, and they don't stop to think,
Well, right now, I mean, I'm reading a wonderful book now about wanting, and the first
I don't like that word.
Emotion that any of us experience is a want.
I call it desire and require. I don't call it want.
Well, want, desire, require. Yeah. We desire to be fed. We desire to be changed.
Yeah.
We desire to be comforted. We desire to be warm. We desire to have, and then as we get older, we desire to have what our neighbors want or have. We desire to have what they have. What was that?
Not me.
Most,
but I understand where you're coming from.
You are an evolved person, but I'm talking about the average person. Everybody comes from this point of want, and there is this constant tug of war because of I want this and or desire, and I have to have this now, instead of saying, okay, well, what is the important thing? Why do you have to have this now? And I have a friend, and God bless him if he happens to be watching. And he's got this constant tug of war going with another person right now, and I, quite frankly, as someone standing on the outside, don't understand why it's difficult to give this other person what they're asking for, because I don't think what this other person is asking for is that big a deal in the scheme of things. But it's a matter of control and relinquishing that control. And I think that that's what it boils down to for a lot of people.
Control. Exactly. We talked about that in one of our last shows about people being addicted.
That's why we are having road rage. That's why people are, I mean, if someone, what is the big hurry? I mean, there's no place on this planet that I want to get to so badly that I'm willing to risk my life to get there.
Right. We're talking about these emotions that are coming from the place that I believe you brought up, Richard. That is, for many, a trauma that they experienced in their childhood. We all did. It's just, even with the best parents in the world, we still become traumatized. And Lord knows there are many people who aren't brought up in a home with the best parents in the world.
Me. Hello. Yeah.
So when that happens, we lock it away, and we lock the little child away with it to protect that little child. Now you're spending the rest of your life doing just that, protecting that little child.
In your solar plexus. In your solar plexus.
You'll do it in extreme ways. You'll deny people, you'll deny yourself, and it's all because that little child is still being protected. So all of this, road rage, all the things we're discussing are still part of that original thing that we talked about, feeling safe. When that little child needs to be protected to feel safe, then we will do extreme things protecting it. And when someone in your life is toxic, when they're actually harming your health in some way, then
attacking.
Yes, there's no reason to stay in that relationship.
That's what I did that this past Friday night. I let go of a friend who was toxic. Yes.
But it is a wonderful thing to have empathy and to find a way to be in balance with your reaction and response to that toxicity, so that you can understand and say, go with God, instead of disliking, hating, however it manifests. Instead of in a negative way, you just allow it to move on.
Or may God go with you, and God bless God.
Or whatever you call it.
Or whatever you call it.
Yeah, whatever you call it. You know, I want to talk about, again, I'm going to bring it up, safety with each other. How do we create a safe space?
Before we go there, may I go back for a moment? Because I want to ask Ron something that he brought up earlier. Okay. I want to go back to something that you said earlier that triggered a thought in my head, that sometimes, and this goes along with the lines of what Kassira is bringing up now, this feeling of safety. Sometimes you can walk into a certain room or a neighborhood or an area where you don't feel safe. And sometimes it could be real or it could be imagined. And if you're feeling it, it's that something's triggering that emotion.
Yes.
It's our extrasensory perception. Here's the thing, Ron, would you agree that most of us have that ability? That we are, most of us,
to a degree, everyone has it.
Yes, we're empath. Everybody's empathic.
Whether you
a lot of
want
people
it
have
or not,
not.
yeah, whether you want it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, you have it.
Yes.
In many cases, it is denied because people
we throw it under the rug. We go, oh no, I'm just crazy. No, I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's almost we've been trained not to allow it. Now, an empath has a lot of difficulty with that. So shutting it off, it's almost impossible to shut it off, but you find ways to deal with it, perhaps not to speak of it to others or whatever.
Right. Okay, go ahead, Richard. I just wanted to say that.
No, that basically is along the lines of what I was saying, that what are your thoughts on that when someone is feeling that? Should we go along? Should we not shut those feelings out? Should we go with those feelings? Because some people will say, "Oh, you're overreacting. You shouldn't be feeling that way."
Oh, I hate that. When I was a little girl, I was told by my cousins that I was. Are you ready for this? Too sensitive.
Sure.
They would make fun. My family was, unfortunately, my father's side of the family. They all have a sense of humor. However, some of it was really, really cruel. And I will never forget the day that my cousin asked me to perform for him what I was doing in tap class. And I was performing my tap class routine. And he told me I looked like a little Indian. And the way he said it really upset me. And I ran into my bedroom and I closed the door and I wouldn't let anybody in. And my family said, "Oh, you're too sensitive." No, he was being cruel. And we've got to be more sensitive with each other about, why did you have that reaction? Talk to me. Why did you have that reaction? Especially children. Why do you feel slighted? Why do you feel, why do you feel
because even as adults, we are felt that way. I mean, I've seen people post something on Facebook about something that they're feeling, and they're attacked for their feelings.
Yes, it's horrible. Guess what?
Yeah, they're adults.
It's their. I'm going to say it. It's their fucking page. You can say whatever you want to say on your page, and if people don't like it, unfriend them. Bye. It's your page. It's your social media page. I'm sorry. I said fuck, and then Ron adjusted his collar.
It's okay.
Ron, listen, I'll say anything. I don't care. Yeah. But yes, we have become so. I just think as a collective consciousness, we have become so desensitized with each other, and we're not tuning in to each other. We just attack each other. If you say something I don't believe in, I'm going to attack you and ruin your life.
Right.
Where did that come from?
Again,
Ron?
You can only offer space to another if you feel safe in your own space.
Yeah.
When you don't feel safe, then you will attack. This is the way things work.
I never argue with anybody.
On a one-to-one basis that way, and it works country to country. You know.
And you've traveled all. Ron, tell me all of the countries you've taught in. Go for it.
It's a long list.
Just name them.
Well, most
Turkey.
recently, Turkey, I have to say, was a wonderful experience to connect with the people in Turkey and to spend considerable time there. A lot of the places in the Bible that are talked about are actually in Turkey.
Yes.
Because in earlier days, in centuries before it, parts of Turkey were actually Greece, where they belonged to what is now called Greece.
Yes.
Anyway, Turkey, all over Europe, both Western and Eastern Europe, and New Zealand, Australia, Japan, just connecting with people from all parts of the world is a way to understand that we are indeed all the same. We have the same fears, and we have the same desires. And you know what? We have the same heart.
Yes.
Because the heart is unified.
That's right.
So that, for me, is the thing that can be discovered when you're willing to go to different parts of the world and really connect with what is there. Not try and make it what you're taking to that part of the world. Yeah.
Thank you.
So is it the opposite of that what you're offering? The opposite of that is what you're offering, Ron?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You said not what we're taking. Is the opposite of that what you're offering?
And in the end, the love we make is equal to the love we take.
Yes.
You know, it's energy. Everything is energy, I believe.
Absolutely. I've told Richard that, and I write about it in my book. It's all energy.
So when you walk into a space, you are energy, and your field is much bigger than just this body. You're actually touching. You're exploring every part of that space as you walk into it.
Yes, we have 9 energetic bodies.
Are either of you familiar with the Enneagram?
I am. Yes. I am, and I teach as a 4th level Reiki master. I teach the concept that we have 9 energetic bodies.
Yes, and this
one is physical, the rest of them are energetic. You know, so we exchange energy with each other constantly, and people don't even get that. They don't even get that we exchange energy.
The Enneagram is really useful, I believe, in our discussion tonight. In that it also divides. It's dividing the personality, the potential personalities, into 9 different personalities. Now, in each of those 9 has 2 other elements to it, so that creates the number 27, which is also a 9. What I want to,
and 9 is I do numerology. 9 is a number of completion.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. What I want to point out is that the basis of the Enneagram comes from a very ancient tradition that is the Sufis.
Yes, the Sufis. I have researched the Sufis. Yes.
The Sufis were and are masters of the heart. What the Enneagram represents is the understanding of the core wound of each individual. It's a science where you are able to understand what the core wound of each of those numbers is. And that is the part of us that at some point in our youth was, whether it was a decision to move that way, that's, now we're talking about predestination, reincarnation, all these things.
That's a whole other show. And guess what? We're going to do that with you as well.
Whether or not we want to go into that, it's enough to know that your place in the wheel of the Enneagram is telling you what your core wound is in this life.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so that is a really useful thing to know when you're working on healing whatever issues are keeping you from feeling safe. So that's, I think, what I wanted to explain about that.
Richard and I agree that when it comes to romantic relationships, especially, or platonic relationships, two things we don't put up with are dishonesty and infidelity. Richard?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've agreed on that. I have some deal breakers when it comes to men and romantic relationships. There's other things, illegal drug use, blah, 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 but dishonesty and infidelity, those are two things that you just can't undo.
Well, it's about your personality too, Kassira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
Richard.
Well, I was going to say, I don't understand how we've gotten to a place in this country. And I don't want to get political. I'm not going to go political because we're not going to go there.
Yeah, we don't go there.
How did we get to I don't care what side you're on politically right now, but how did we get to a place in this country where just not telling the truth would be acceptable?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get
it.
I
talk about that in my
life, and I look at the stories that I tell. I have a one-man show which chronicles my life growing up in my hometown, coming to New York, the journey that led to my coming to New York. I talk about the first show that I auditioned for and how I didn't get the show that I auditioned for and everything. Well, perhaps I should have changed it all and said, I auditioned for this show. I got the show. I got every award known to man. I came to New York. I got a Broadway show the day I arrived in New York. None of that is true. But to make all that up, it's not part of my truth. And I don't understand how we have reached a level in this country where you can just say it and it becomes a fact.
This is what happens when we lose that connection to the unified field, and we begin to create a world of polarity where everything becomes more and more polarized as we go further down this track and down the road. This is what we're coming to now. So why are we doing this? That's perhaps another question we can ask before we're out of time here.
We're going to run out of time.
Yes.
Oh my God. Ron.
Why are we doing this? And I will offer this. We actually came here to experience the reality that we created so that we could do something that's never been done before in the way we're doing it. We came here so that we would forget who we are.
Yes.
And we would even think that we lost our connection to God.
Well, we always have the connection to quote unquote God. We get in the way of we get in the way of that connection. We do. I'm dealing with that with lots of people.
Don't go anywhere for a moment. We are going to run out of time. Hold that thought for just a moment, Ron. I am going to say my closing remarks, and then Ron, I'm going to give you a chance to say your closing remarks.
Yes.
and then I'm going to have Kassira say her closing remarks, unless Kassira, you want to flip the
No. I want Ron to have the last word.
That's what I'm thinking tonight as well. So you and
I
are on the same wavelength.
He's an expert. He's a
Ron,
genius.
you are welcome here anytime. But I just want to say to everybody, thank you for being here tonight. It means the world to me that you all chose to be with us tonight. I see familiar faces here. Pam Stubbs. God bless you. Sandra Kay. I'm in love with you. Sandra Kay, who I barely know, but we have a soul contract now, called me on my birthday with her soulful jazz voice.
God, she's
happy
gorgeous.
Birthday to me.
She's gorgeous.
Howard Tucker. So I just want to thank you all for being here. I also
hang on, Ron. Hang on.
Hold on for a second. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Now, what I want you all to do is I want you to go to your Facebook page after tonight's show, and I want you to go to the second name that pops up, and I want you to pick up the phone, and I want you to call that person. Now, I'm going to call out Howard Tucker for a moment. So just let me speak. Because Howard, I don't have everyone's phone numbers. Well, Howard, it's very simple. You reach out and say, I don't have your phone number and I would like to call you. It's that simple. One of my favorite quotes is argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. That's by Richard Bach from the wonderful book Illusions. He also wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. So what I want you all to do is to reach out with a phone call, not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean in your life, what they matter to you. Because we, as an ambulance goes by, talk about sound, which Ron is all about, sound. We take the time to let our friends and those that matter to us know what they mean to us. As my dear friend David Friedman always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, normally I leave the screen, but I'm going to stick around.
But hang on.
I want to hear what
before we give Ron before we give Ron the last word. I want to read the quote that he contributed to my book, Let That Go. And then then I give him the screen. May I read the quote that he contributed to my book? Okay, Ron, are you ready? This is in the chapter called Collective Consciousness, Soul Contracts, and the Law of Oneness. And this is what he sent to me to contribute to the book. Hang on, let me take my glasses off because I really want to see that. Right, here we go. The people in our lives who truly serve us are not always the ones we like the most. Often, it is the ones who we have the most difficulty being around who offer us the greatest gifts, period. The contract is formed in a love that goes so deep that they agree to do the hardest of the jobs in this life, in this relationship. They take on a role that is so important for teaching us something about ourselves that we often end up liking, disowning, or even hating them. In doing so, they prove what real love is. Its boundaries go beyond the narrow picture of the single lifetime and move into the timeless love that exists only outside of the ego and the need to be liked. Ron LaPlace, Doctor of Metaphysics, certified teacher of awakening the heart, certified practitioner and instructor of aquatonics and sound healing and Merkaba meditation. Take it, Ron.
Okay, having the last word, I will simply ask everyone to take a moment to just breathe in deeply. And then to breathe out. And as you breathe out, allow your attention to move into your heart. And as you move into that space, feel within you the unified field where all things come from and all things are one. And in that space, we come together. And so it is.